Hello, and welcome to another day of TA the Degen Way. Well, I just wanted to hop on and talk about the Gann box. How do we use the Gann box? And what is this crazy thing? You know, we've got these angles coming out, we've got these squares. It's a different tool that I don't know that a lot of people really know what this thing is trying to show you. One thing I'll mention right off the bat, if you haven't watched my video on the octave method, you should, because these are essentially the same thing. What we're looking at here is we're looking at rise versus run. What am I saying in our Discord all the time? That things, for whatever reason, tend to arrange themselves proportionally. So, if there is a proportional relationship that exists of any kind between the amount of price rise and the amount of price run, if we take things that have geometric properties of equality, like a circle or a square, it's equal to itself in many respects, we can take that relationship and we can expand that out into the future. So, what we're looking at here with this Gann box essentially is, let's say that this is our first push up. Here's our price level right here. Kind of jockeys around a little bit, puts it a little high, pulls back, and then does one of these. So what do we have here? Right here. We have our impulse wave, and we have our pullback. We have our rise versus run of our first little impulse here. So what we're looking at is we want to set our Gann box to match up this first amount of rise with this first amount of run. And what it's telling us is it's taking this relationship here and it is expanding that relationship of rise versus run out into the future. Very similar to the octave method. How does the octave method work? Very, very similar. We'll use our first initial example here. So, how does the octave method work? Well, in the same way as the Gann box. Let's say this was your first rise up, and the price comes on out and does something like this. What are we looking at with the octave method? We're looking at rise versus run. The only difference is here we would take our circle tool and we would drag it up to match this first height, and then we would adjust our aspect ratio until the edge of our circle reaches the point that we want to project into the future. And then now as we move this up, it's going to be showing us that rise versus run relationship. If we rise this much rise equals this much run, this much price increase over this much time, which is essentially the same thing that the Gann Square shows you. So if you come into your tools here on the side, we have our Gann box. If we were to pull, not our Gann box, we want our Gann Square. Now there's two different Gann Squares in here. One is a fixed square. I find it utterly useless. I don't even use the Gann Square, period, but I've had a lot of people ask me about it, and I think it's because they probably don't understand exactly how that thing works. And it works exactly the same as the octave method. The octave method is essentially measuring the same thing. So we would drag our Gann box up to match our first level, and we would slide it over to match, either our first high, we could match our first pullback, whatever relationship we want to project. And now what relationship that we should be projecting is, essentially whatever gives us some confluence. I mean, there's not a right answer. We're looking for proportional relationships between time and price. So, I mean, you can see here I've set my fib tool at 1/8 increments for the octave method. I mean, why? Because they're all equally spaced, just like in this Gann square. This grid is all equally spaced. And then it's taking that, we're adjusting it, left to right to match up here. Just like if we had used the octave method, which is essentially the same thing. We will pull this up, and now we want to adjust our aspect ratio so it meets up right there as it does. Now, as we pull this up, notice how your Gann square is also taking note of the 50% mark in between these octave levels. Go up to the full. And it's giving you a window rather than just, this one fixed point. I mean, nothing is fixed. Nothing is true. Nothing is linear. Nothing is straight. Everything is in motion. Down to the smallest atom. So, as things are in motion, how do they move? Well, they move with vibration. And things that vibrate with frequency. There is a relationship to what creates it and what is, providing resistance to it. So, this is the Gann square. It is a tool that is used to measure a relationship between rise, the Gann square. This is the Gann box. I keep saying the Gann square because I use the Gann square to show proportional relationships of 0.382 and 0.618. Here we're looking at a proportional relationship between rise versus run, which is essentially what this is showing us. Now let's turn on the Bitcoin chart and let's just look at some price action. What are we talking about here? All that matters is these extreme lows. This is where, this maxed out. I'm going to ignore this tiny little wick, and I'm going to say that this move up here really started right here. Where did this wave begin? Right there. So first we're going to take our fib tool here, and how do we use the octave method? We set these levels to match that first push up. Why? That is the amount of rise that we got out of this. Now, there's no right answer. All of these things should be in existence proportional to itself in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And all these things can tell you is that, when I see things in the price action, that are giving me an indication. If that indication is real and true, well, then it should be proportional to the past price action in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And if you can't find any proportional relationship, you're probably wrong, or the premise that things exist proportionally is wrong. So here with the octave method, we drag this up, and then now, see, naturally this circle comes out here. I want to match it either with this high or this low. So we got to come over here, we got to adjust our aspect ratio here. And we're going to match this first pullback. Now as I raise this circle up at this ratio where this rise versus run matches, what is it going to give me? It's going to give me proportional relationships to this amount of rise and this amount of run. And what did it give us? Right, we're price down. What does it give us here? That top. give us here? This top. What does this give us? Nothing. Well, yeah, it does. To the 625 level, or the 5/8 level on this octave scale, tends to be the end of something. And look at what you get. Long, drawn-out reaccumulation. Which is why I prefer to use this octave scale and this circle tool, because I have far more leeway with what I'm adjusting it to. I mean, a lot of things. Now let's do the same thing with the Gann Square. I mean, what are we looking at with the Gann Square? What is this Gann Square for? It is for, and forget the fixed. I mean, the fixed, you can adjust it. And Gann, he set his charts to a 1:1 ratio because he didn't have the luxury of just going over to the sidebar and going like this, like we do. So what do we want to set this? Well, we have our rise and our run setting. We want to, so our rise is these levels just like on our octave scale. Our run levels is, our amount of time is these up and downs. And the circles are pre-inserted. So we want to match this up so that the amount of price rise, and I'm picking this point, we could pick this point, we could pick this point, or you can pick whatever you want, but it needs to be something of significance that, I mean, there was a change. So here we're looking at this relationship of rise versus run to create this part of the cycle, or this part of this wave. And then now, I mean, you know, if we go on out, for price levels, we have this level, this level, this level, and this level. Was this level, well, of course it was respected right here. Was this level respected? It was. Let's look at this next level. Well, this level didn't have a chance to be respected because we didn't get up there. Was the 50% mark respected? Kinda, you know, maybe. But let's look at these time factors. Was this time factor respected? Well, it was. Was this time factor respected? We're off by a tick. I mean, but it was. Was this time factor respected? Yeah, it's the high, and then we came down. Was this time factor respected? Well, that's the one that we set. I mean, every time factor in this Gann Square was respected. You know, and it's not giving you a specific line in time. Notice how it's giving you a little window. I mean, that's why it has these, you know, these lines. It's giving you this area. So, I mean, if we were to take this onto a more macro scale, let's go out to our Bitcoin daily. Here's the 1 day. And what are we looking at today? We're looking at what is the Gann Square for and how does it work? Well, it is for the same thing that the octave method, which there is a previous video on. If you haven't watched it, I suggest you go and watch it. I mean, I give the same demonstration on a 1-minute chart, 5-minute chart, I mean, any time frame, because we're looking at proportional relationships between rise and run. So, I mean, here, let's just take this down here. Let's say that you know, here is one move in the market. Here's another one. Here is another one. Here is another one. And we start this right here. You know, we got this. We got this guy. And then we got this guy. Let's take just our last one here. And so what do we have first? What is the first, you know, let's say that we believe that we've put in a low here. And then we get this little pump up, and then let's say we got this, we're all the way out here. Let's say we were to use the replay tool or something, and we don't know that any price action past here exists, but we have this part and we have this part. What does this part tell us? Well, we're still pushing up. We broke the high and we came down, we put in a lower low, we reclaimed the range, we pushed on up, and we've retested the range. So, I mean, what can we do? We want to look for, you know, price levels of significance in the future and time factors in the future that will give us some type of indication of what we should be looking for. So we want to take, here is our amount of rise. Let's just snap a line there. And there's two significant points in this amount of rise that we can mark to look for relationships in run or time. So let's, pretty much right about right here. And, at the actual high. And then right here, where this pullback kind of ends and, this move has ended. So let's take our Gann Square now and let's match our up and down level to that. And then let's match our time factor to that. And let's see if we get any significant points in rise first run. So here's our price levels. Was this price level respected? It was. Here it's resistance. Here it's support. Right on the money. Was this price level respected? Yeah, kinda. We didn't pull all the way back down there. Was this respected? If we go down into a smaller time frame, we might see that it was. On the daily, we were not really seeing much in the candlestick action to show us that. Yeah, it was. Here's support, resistance, pretty close. Right on the money, not so much. Time-wise, right on the money. Time-wise, right on the money. Time-wise, right on the money. Level, right on the money. This level, right on the money. This third one, right on the money. And what do I say about bell curve philosophy is the way to put it. Let's say that we consider a pivot low to be an extreme, and let's give it a value of 0. What happens when something deviates, and let's say that this is one deviation. We deviated from 0, 1 deviation. So this is 0, and this is 1 deviation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, 1, comparing with the octave scale, how many runs are in the scan box? 5. What level tends to be the max level on the octave scale? 0.625 or 5. 5/8, 5 runs. What we're looking at here is just this expansion process in time and price. So you can use these things to give you an indication as to where proportional relationships based off of this amount, there's a certain number of participants, and the farther you get away on that from this 0 mark, 1 deviation, 2 deviations, 3 deviations. After 3 deviations, probability is no longer in your favor. The 4th and the 5th, it becomes more probable that you're going to see some kind of a reversal or long drawn out reaccumulation. You need to make a new normal, a new average. And the same thing in time. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we were to take this right here and we were to say this was the entire move, because it's over, swing low to swing high, and let's take the middle of our Gann box and let's get 2.5 on each side. So let's say this here, that's about right in the 50% mark. Do we see any proportional relationships? Well, look at 50% here. That's about right there. We're right down in this trough. Let's look at 75%. Here's 50, so 75 would be about right down in here. Let's look at the 50% mark over here. There is proportional relationships in time and price, because for whatever reason, they just tend to arrange themselves proportionally. And this is one thing that Gann discovered, was that there was these proportional relationships that exist. He called it the law of vibration, was his mechanism to create these things, or why these things exist. Why? Because how do things vibrate? They vibrate with frequency. There is a wave, there's a cycle. And what do I focus on in our Discord, which if you're not a member of, it's totally free. I'm just here to help you, and by helping you, it helps me. And if you do see some value in this content and you're helped by it, I suggest you do me a favor and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Anything that you can do to support these efforts would be greatly appreciated. But I'm talking about these things all the time because I notice the same thing, that there is, a wave in the market. Every technical analysis theory out there focuses on waves and cycles and pullback sizes. What are we talking about? We're talking about the properties of vibration. We're talking about waves, cycles, and the frequency thereof. And that's, we're charting rise versus run on a price chart. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at price and time. I use a log scale, so I'm looking at the percentage change in price versus time. So, well, we have a word from our sponsor, which is where we're going to end it anyways. Uh-oh. Jay-Z and Beyonce. Not good. That's a funny guy. That guy on YouTube, if you pick that out, he is a funny guy. But the point of this video is to talk about what is the Gann Square used for. And if you don't know what the Gann Square is used for after watching the video, watch it again and again and again and again. You're looking for proportional relationships between time and price. Rise versus run. That's what it's for. That's what the octave method is used for. You can search for a past video on it. But if you have any more questions, there's a link to the free Discord in the description. Come on in. I'd be happy to answer them. And until next time, trade well.